In this packet, we're talking about the rules for average and standard deviation. And in this first example, the factory manager has figured out the average number of breakdowns per day is 0.25 and the standard deviation is 0.536. So I would go through and say, okay, I'm going to have a random variable called b, which will be the number of breakdowns. And it said the average is 0.25. So the expected value for breakdowns, our average is 0.25. So on average, we get 1/4 breakdown per day, or about 1 breakdown per 4 days. And then the standard deviation, so standard deviation looks like this little sigma. Standard deviation for our breakdowns is 0.536. Now it doesn't actually ask me for this, but let's go ahead and find the variance for our number of breakdowns. And you'll do that by squaring your standard deviation. So that gives me 0.2873. Again, kind of do everything out to 4 decimal places just to help with rounding. Now, he estimates that each breakdown costs $500 in repairing production costs. And we know, looking down, we're looking for average cost, standard deviation cost. So we want a new random variable called cost. So we're going to make a new random variable, cost. And the way I find that, the cost is 500 times the number of breakdowns, right? So cost is 500 times the number of breakdowns. Let's see, so what is the average cost for the breakdowns per day? So I want to find the average value of the cost. But cost is really 500 times b, so we're looking for the expected value of 500 times b. Now this 500, when you do expected value, just gets pulled out. So 500 times the expected value of b. And that's 0.25, so 500 times 0.25 equals 125. And that is $125 because it was $500 per breakdown. So on average, our breakdowns will cost us $125 per day. And we did that by using our rules for expected value and variance. In fact, let's go up here and write our rules for expected value and variance. Our rules for expected value and variance say for expected value, if you have a number times your variable, that number just comes out. And then you just do the expected value of x, and this plus b will just be plus b on the end. For variance, if you have a number times the x, that number comes out squared. So it'll be a squared times the variance of x. Now this plus b doesn't actually do anything to variance, it just kind of disappears. And so that's why in this situation we just pulled out that 500. Now, what is the standard deviation? There's a shortcut method you can use here, but sometimes it's easier to not worry about shortcuts and just do everything the long way. So to find standard deviation, first find variance. So the variance for cost is going to be the variance of this 500 times b. Now that 500 gets to come out, but it has to come out squared. So we'll have 500 times the variance of b, which is going to be 500 squared times the variance of 0.2873, which gives me 71,825. Now that you have the variance, take the square root to get standard deviation. So the standard deviation for cost is going to be the square root of that 71,825, or 268.0018. So the standard deviation for cost is $268. Now, some people might notice that all you really had to do is take the standard deviation up here and times it by 500 and you'll get to the same answer. It's just kind of a shortcut. But if you're not really getting stuff, sometimes it's harder to learn a bunch of shortcuts, so do it the long way. Find the variance, use the rules for variance because we learned rules for variance. Okay, example 5. An insurance company currently has an average profit of $325 per policy and the standard deviation is 40. So the current has the expected value currently is 325. The standard deviation for our current is 40. they decide to charge $50 more for each policy. So basically we're taking each policy and just adding $50. So our new one is just going to be our current plus 50. So what is the new average per policy? So the expected value for the new is just the expected value of the current plus 50. And that plus 50, if you add something in the expected value, it just comes right out. So it'll just be the expected value of the current plus 50, or 25 plus 50, which gives me $75. Which makes sense, right? If you're currently making an average profit of 25 and you charge everyone 50 more, your profit should now be 75, 50 more. New standard deviation. First, find the variance. So the variance, oh, we didn't find variance up here. Let's do that. So the variance for C is just 40 squared, or 1600. So the variance for the new is variance of the current plus 50. But when you have this plus 50 inside of variance, it doesn't actually matter. It just kind of disappears. Okay, the reason why is if you add the same amount to each person's policy, because you add the exact same amount, it doesn't change the spread or the spread of the values. They're still the same amount spread apart, so the variance doesn't change. So that variance is 1600. Now to find the standard deviation for new, just take the square root of that, which gives you 40.